Hello friends, if you're new to my channel, welcome. Why don't you go down and hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss any episodes. For my fans and subscribers, welcome back. I do appreciate you. Today's topic, the origins of Satan, the Gospel of Luke. Not much else I need to say. Well, let's get on with the video. I know that the Gospels were written anonymously, but for simplicity's sake, I am just going to refer to them as Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. While Matthew claimed that the Jews had lost their privileged status as God's covenant people because they rejected the Messiah, Luke agreed with Paul that God had always intended to offer salvation to everyone. He saw all believers as members of quote-unquote true Israel. Luke also writes explicitly what is implied by Mark and Matthew. That is, a connection between Jesus' Jewish enemies and the devil. Luke has Jesus himself suggesting at his arrest that the arresting party is in league with the evil one. He also refutes allegations that Jesus was illegitimate and not of the house of David, which is a requirement to be the Messiah. Luke tries to show that it was God's Spirit, not a man, who impregnated Mary. Unlike Matthew, he does not record any animosity on the part of King Herod or those at Jerusalem. In this gospel, the devil appears early on, as soon as Jesus is grown and baptized, in order to tempt him. After Jesus defeats the devil, he retreats until a more opportune time, which only occurs at the end of the story, when the Sanhedrin seeks to kill Jesus. It is at this time that he enters Judas. Satan worked through human agents throughout Jesus' career. Despite a favorable reception after Jesus' first teaching session, the crowd suddenly grew violent, almost killing him. This took place in Nazareth, where he entered the synagogue and read a passage in Isaiah, then predicts the people will reject him. Luke 4:21-29. Jesus evades the attempt on his life this time, but now the scribes and Pharisees want him out of the picture and start to look for anything of which to accuse him. When they see him heal on the Sabbath day, they became furious. Interestingly, in Luke, not all of the Pharisees were hostile toward Jesus, as in the Gospel of Matthew. In fact, some Pharisees, like Nicodemus, expressed interest in his message. Others invited him to dine in their homes, and yet others warned him of danger. However, others willingly allowed themselves to be used by the devil and plotted to kill him. In this gospel, Jesus shows empathy toward those who are despised, the poor, sick, women, and Samaritans, and many of his followers were prostitutes and tax collectors. Jews and Samaritans have common ancestry, but the Samaritans stayed in Israel during the Babylonian captivity and thus have different beliefs. The author portrays Jesus and his followers as loyal to the temple. He wants to convince us that they are closer to God than the Jewish leaders. Spiritual warfare between God and Satan intensifies as the gospel progresses, and this warfare is personified between Jesus and the religious leaders. According to Luke 13:31, some Pharisees warned Jesus that Herod wants to kill him. It is important to note that this is not the Herod who supposedly wanted Jesus dead as an infant. That Herod, Herod the Great, died in 4 BCE. He named a lot of his sons after himself, so I'm not quite sure which Herod this is. Jesus sends out 70 apostles. When they come back reporting that even demons are subject to them in his name, Jesus predicts the enemy's doom. Luke 10:18-19. Before Satan enters Judas and betrays Jesus, Jesus foretells that he will return as king and annihilate his enemies. After this, he makes his final trip to Jerusalem, telling his disciples on the way that a nobleman traveled to a land to claim his rightful crown, but the people reject him. When he returns in triumph, he demands that his enemies be killed. Well, so much for the picture of Jesus as a peaceful man. Luke makes the parallel between Jesus and the nobleman as Jesus traveled to Jerusalem when speaking this parable. Luke is the only one to insert the king upon the arrival of Jesus into Jerusalem. Luke 19:38. The writer of Luke then tells us that as Passover drew near, the priests and scribes wanted him put to death. Judas then confers with them in order to betray Jesus. Then Jesus says that neither Satan's role nor God's preordained plan absolves Judas. Luke 22:22. That's pretty messed up if you think about it, because not only is Judas being used as a pawn of Satan, he's also being used as God's pawn. I mean, come on. How on earth can somebody punish someone for being a pawn of theirs? It doesn't make sense. John mentions Roman soldiers, and Matthew and Mark mention Gentiles, but Luke only mentions Jews being in the arresting party. When the armed party arrived in Gethsemane, Luke's Jesus identifies the Jews as Satan incarnate. Again, the intimate enemy. Mark and Luke both write that Peter secretly followed Jesus, but at this point Luke starts to diverge by omitting that trial before the Sanhedrin, which resulted in a unanimous death sentence. According to Matthew and Mark, after this trial, the Sanhedrin beat him, mocked him, and spit on him. Then the guards joined in. However, according to Luke, Jesus is held all night in the courtyard of the chief priest to wait for the Sanhedrin's morning session, and the men who guard him entertain themselves by beating him. In the morning, the guards led Jesus to a chamber to be questioned by the Sanhedrin. This wasn't a formal trial. It seems to be some kind of a hearing with no witnesses and no formal sentencing. Despite this, the Sanhedrin took Jesus to Pilate and made capital charges against him. British scholar David Catchpole believes that the author of Luke had access to independent earlier accounts of what happened before the crucifixion, because he recreates a scene in which the Sanhedrin interrogates Jesus. Mark claims that Jesus affirms his divine appointment, but in Luke, he is evasive. Lacking any supporting evidence, no one can say what happened. The people who interpret these texts must provisionally reconstruct what happened, who added what, and why. Catchpole argues that Luke's account is more reliable than the others, meaning that the Sanhedrin did indeed accuse Jesus of claiming to be Messiah and Son of God. Raymond Brown disagrees. He thinks that the titles of Messiah and Son of God emerged later in the Christian communities, not the Sanhedrin. At any rate, Luke suggests that Jesus received public acclaim as king, but when the Pharisees warned him about this, he refused to silence the ones who were proclaiming him king. Whether or not he claimed this title for himself or just accepted public acclaim, this mattered less to the Sanhedrin than the effect of such claims. According to Luke, Jesus' enemies brought accusations against him that were designed to arouse the governor's concerns, that he forbid them to pay taxes to Caesar, and he proclaimed himself king, which was a traitorous act. While Matthew and Mark write that Pilate was skeptical, according to Luke, Pilate said that Jesus was innocent at least 3 times. When the crowds objected, Pilate sent Jesus to Herod, trying to rid himself of responsibility, which, according to the Christians, did not work. The writer of Luke also absolves Pilate by writing that it was Herod and his officers who abused Jesus, Luke 23:11. And I might add that history bears out that Pilate had no problem putting people to death. So this story by Luke makes no sense. Well, friends, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, press the subscribe button, and if you want to know when I come out with new content, hit the bell next to the subscribe button. My Twitter, Discord, email, and PayPal links are in the description, along with the source that I used for this episode. If you wish to get in contact with me, Twitter is the best, followed by email. Also, if you wish to support this channel, you may do so on my PayPal link. Please leave comments in the comment section. Not only do I love hearing from you, but it also triggers the YouTube algorithm. Keep learning and searching for truth. Here are a few videos from my library. If you have not watched them yet, go ahead and watch them and tell me what you think. Until next time, friends, stay safe and goodbye.